podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Paddock and the Pavilion for the latest episode in our series, What Was It Like To? In today's show, former England off-spinner Pat Pocock takes us back to the 1984 Test Series against the West Indies, famously dubbed the Blackwash Series, a series the Caribbean greats won 5-0. Pat shares his experiences, insights, and what it was like to face one of the most formidable cricket teams in history. What was it like to play against the 1984 West Indian side who beat England 5-0?
Well, they'd had a very long record of winning, of beating just about everybody they came up against, and so we were rather used to the. I mean, if you go through the list of players, it's just horrendous, whether they're batsmen or fast bowlers. I mean, the list was horrendous, surely never to be beaten. You know, it's so it was a really good, and you knew, but there's one huge advantage of playing against them in '84. Somebody gave me a helmet to wear. Boy, what a difference that made. I did night watchman, Holding Roberts, Daniel Croft, Garner, Marshall, Patterson, Lilly, Thompson, and so many other world-class fast bowlers. But as soon as we had a helmet to wear, what a difference that made.
We're going to come on to that because you did play a few games as night watchman, particularly against these West Indians. And in the 84 series, you joined the fray when England were 3-0 down. But I wanted to take you back to your Test debut, actually, which was 1968. You were only 21 and you were playing against the West Indies in Barbados. Hall and Griffith were playing. What's your recollections of that first game in 1968?
Well, I was mesmerised to be playing. The only reason I came in was when the Fred Titmus lost his toes in a boating accident, and that was tremendous. But to be fair, Fred was a wonderful bowler over a long period of time. But up until that time, he had a fairly poor time on this tour. I mean, Fred was one of the great off spinners ever, and but he played. So one or two of the journos were saying, "Well, is it time to bring in a Pat Pocock?" But if he hadn't lost his toes, that rather sorted out the selection a bit.
That was the third test. You then played in the fifth test. You missed the Gary Sobers' famous declaration in the fourth test at Port of Spain.
Yeah, well, when Fred lost his toes, they had to get another spinner, and so Lockie came in, Tony Locke, and he came in, and he was preferred to me, which is quite understandable because he was a wonderful bowler as well. So if you're going to be there in the middle of two spinners like Tony Locke and Fred Titmus, then you're rather lucky if you play one test.
This fifth test, which England hung on for a draw, you played a significant role as a batsman. You added 109 with Tony Locke for the ninth wicket.
Yeah, I think Lockie scored most of the runs, and he was. I mean, don't forget he was a Surrey man as well, so I knew him, and obviously before he went out to Australia, he played for Leicestershire. But no, he was a strange bloke, a wonderful bowler, and he just all I did was play for Lockie at the other end, and that was really the best thing to do.
Yeah, Pat Pocock scored 13. You batted for 129 minutes, 103 balls.
I probably got a bit of stick from the crowd as well.
Yeah, I bet in those days the crowd were, quite vibrant.
But that match, we tried to draw the match because that was the only thing we were going to do, and I played. I got the faintest little nicks off Lance Gibbs. I mean, nobody heard it, but one person had around the bat, and the whole team around the bat. One person had an appeal, and the umpire said not out. and then blow me a couple of balls later. He tries to york me, and I hit the ball into the ground, and Clive Lloyd catches it and throws it way in the air, and the umpire gives me out. It was knocked into the ground, and anyway, then Alan Knott was in, and Jeff Jones went out to bat, and he had to play out the last over. Knotty tried to keep the strike. He had about 70, I think, and Jeff Jones went out there, and he couldn't keep strike. So therefore, Jonesy was having to play out the last over to draw the match, and he was very, very nervous. Needless to say, with a big crowd there and so much depending now on him. And he walked down the wicket, and Jeff Jones, as you know, was a Welshman. And he went down the wicket, and Knotty didn't say anything to him. He just put his mouth in his ear and said, "We'll keep a welcome in the hillside," and turned around and went back to his end again. Then Jeff Jones played out the last over, and I heard when I got back in that 3 of our players spent the last over in the toilet. And that was Ken Barrington, Colin Cowdrey, and who was the other? Tom Graveney. And I heard that they spent the last over in the toilet because they were so nervous.
Great memories there. I forgot to mention in your Test debut, your first victim was Clive Lloyd. Yes, I couldn't get out of the way. It was caught and bowled, and he middled it, and I caught it. I was actually a very, very good catcher of the ball, but not off my own bowling. Because whether I didn't transfer the view to the right spot on the bat, I don't know. But I was a very good catcher of ball. I went 4 or 5 years once without dropping a catch in the field anywhere. But I was not a good one. But when Lloyd nailed this one back at me, it was right in front of my chin, and I couldn't get out of the way. And I caught it and just threw it up in the air as though it was easy. But it certainly wasn't. Lloyd, he didn't know how unlucky he was. Moving on to 1974, you toured the West Indies again, and in the first test, you took 5 wickets. Did you like bowling in the West Indies? No. When I say like bowling, it didn't turn much, and I can remember looking at the wicket, and it looked like marble. It wasn't. It was not going to turn, and we played. We had four spinners in the team, and I played ahead of them, and I bowled 60 overs in the innings and ripped my finger to pieces. And then Jack Birkinshaw, who was in the side, he took my place when we went to Antigua for the next match. And a guy came to the wicket with big shoulders. His name was I.V.A. Richards, Pavilion Richards, and we'd never seen him before. And he got 174. And he got 174. And Berkey took the stick that I would have got if I'd have been bowling. Now, next to the ground is a huge wooden church, huge wooden church. And Viv got 174. And after he got about 130, it rained for about 2 hours. And then the umpires went out to inspect the pitch, and he hit Berkey for 9 sixes, you see. And I'm sure I would have got that if I'd been bowling. But anyway, he hit Berkey for 9 sixes. And the umpires went out to inspect the pitch. And when they got halfway out, Berkey went to the edge of the balcony and he cupped his hands and said, "Hey, umpires." And they turned around and said, "Don't worry about looking at the wicket. Go and see what the ground's like in the churchyard." And the crowd absolutely roared over laughter there. Go and see what the ground's like in the churchyard. You did get to bowl to Lawrence Rowe when he got 300, though. Yeah, he was a fabulous player, and so many times his name is forgotten. He's a great player. Really was
a fine player. And when you think of the list of players, it's as long as your arm, and that's just a batsman. And the bowlers as well, who really made their name for them, hunting in a 4 or 5 pack all the time. And then they had Lance Gibbs as well, who was one of the best hard wicket off spinners we have ever seen.
The series was drawn, and then we're going to talk about 1976, a series I remember very well. I've still got a scrapbook of the whole tour. And you played the second test at Lord's and the third test at Old Trafford. The second test, England lost the series 3-0. The second test was drawn. And I noticed you'd mentioned it earlier in the podcast at the beginning that it was one of those games when Pat Pocock went in as a night watchman.
Yes, he went in night watchman quite a bit. And I know that I think I took the place of Barry Wood when he got out. And he came and he just apologised to me as I walked past him. But no, it was you can't do the nighter's job against the West Indies without it being very, very problematic to say the least. Yeah.
This was Andy Robertson, Michael Holding, and Wayne Daniel in the third test, which is remembered for this barrage that Brian Close and John Edridge got at Old Trafford.
That was the most fearsome bowling I've ever seen in my life, and the wicket was very poor because sometimes the ball bounced and sometimes it didn't, and so you could never be sure. And if you see the replay of that again, you'll see closely peppered. I've never seen such aggressive bowling to one player ever, and Closely got peppered in the ribs. He got hit about 4 or 5 times in the ribs, and because he flicked his head out of the way, he didn't get a hit on the head. But apart from that, and when he came off, the physio said to him, "Brian, I think I'd better have a look at the damage." So he looks at him, and he's got pointed bits under his skin where the ribs were obviously broken. Oh, he says, "I don't like the look of that." He said, "You better go down to the hospital." Near lad, just give us a scotch," he said. Anyway, I got in the second innings as night watchman to Closey, and I didn't get out because I walked out to bat the next morning with John Edridge. He'd said to me, "Which end do you fancy then?" So I said, "Well, I think Andy is a bit of light relief." And he started roaring with laughter. I said, "What are you laughing at?" He said, "I'll tell you now." He said, "When Andy Roberts is light relief, we've got problems."
Had the West Indies taken it to a new level with intimidatory bowling in that series?
That was the most fearsome bowling I've ever seen in my whole career, and it was and Michael was faster than we've ever seen him bowl before, and I think we got bowled out for
71 in the first innings.
I'm sorry,
71 in the first innings.
71, and in the lunchroom, Michael, I called across the room, "Hey, Mikey, did you get any of those to spin?" And of course, everyone just fell about laughing.
Of course, we shouldn't forget their batting as well. You had Clive Lloyd, Alvin Kalachharan, Gordon Greenidge, Roy Fredericks.
I mean, wonderful. Lloyd. I mean, not only in all the series, they had a wonderful lineup, and Alvin Kalachharan was at one stage. All the players thought he was the best the left-hander in the world. He really was. He was a wonderful player.
I'm Victoria Cash. Thanks for calling the Lucky Land Hotline. If you feel like you do the same thing every day, press 1. If you're ready to have some serious fun for the chance to redeem some serious prizes, press 2. We heard you loud and clear. So go to LuckyLandSlots.com right now and play over 100 social casino-style games for free. Get lucky today at LuckyLandSlots.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply.
Well, let's move on to 1984. You had quite a big gap before your return to Test cricket. When that summer began, did you ever think you would be playing in that series?
I was probably in my peak then, and I was in my peak for quite a long time. But the whole time they were trying to pick somebody who scored more runs than me as well. So all I could do was just to bowl the best I could and to see what happened and if I got picked again. But it was a very tough time, as you say. I went through a period in my bowling career where I'd never bowled better, and yet I didn't even get a smell. I really didn't.
Well, just to give context, the first test at Birmingham, West Indies won by an innings and 180. The second test, which is quite a famous match, they won by 9 wickets, but this is the game where David Gower was the England captain. England was still batting on the 5th morning, and the West Indies knocked off 340 for only 1 wicket.
Oh, yeah.
When Gordon Greenidge got a double 100.
Well, Greenidge and Haynes, what a fabulous opening pair they were. And if you write the list of the players down in all eras, didn't they win every tour they ever went on for a period of about 15 years?
Yeah, we had 29 series without defeat, which is a record.
Amazing, isn't it? I'm not surprised.
And they'd gone into this particular series having played Australia in the March and April, and they'd beaten them 3-0, and the 3 victories were 10 wickets, an innings defeat, and another 10-wicket win. So they really were at the peak of their powers. So you came in. They then won the 3rd test by 8 wickets. You then came into the dressing room for the 4th test. Series over. What was the atmosphere like in the dressing room?
It was, well, what's going to come out of this match? You know, I mean, I've never been into a dressing room where I thought we had less chance of winning, but all you can do, and I think most people were of the same opinion as me, was to give the best possible performance you could for the team, the side, and the individual. I really do think everyone tried their utmost to put in the best performance they could.
Because the bowling attack in that series, main leaders being Joel Garner, Malcolm Marshall and Michael Holding all together.
Not too bad, are they?
So the 4th test, you come back in and West Indies score over 500, but you get 4 wickets. 4 for 121.
Yeah.
But 45 overs.
Yes, so if I go for that many runs, if I bowl that many overs and only go for that many runs against a team like that, I'm quite happy, even if I didn't get the 4 wickets.
And Pat Pocock batting, first innings bowled Garner naught, and the second innings caught Garner, bowled Roger Harper naught.
Oh, yes, well, they are. I mean, you never think you're going to get too many runs against them, especially after such a long period of time that we had with the record against the West Indies was rather difficult, to say the least.
And then moving to the Oval for the 5th test,
yeah,
it was quite a close game because England bowled the West Indies out for 190.
Yeah, I think I only bowled 8 overs, didn't I?
Yeah, you didn't bowl much in that match.
In one innings, 8 overs in 1 innings, and that was it. Yeah. The wicket at the Oval had a bit of pace and a bounce in it, so it wasn't a great wicket for a spin bowler to bowl on.
But more night watchman duties for Pat Pocock.
Right, so yeah. It was a very difficult time, and we didn't have the protection and the chest protectors and helmets and in the earlier series. Not that we had that much in that one, but we did have helmets, which made a huge difference. I can remember when Jonathan Agnew hit me full square. I went in the night watchman against him, and he got a ball to fly off a length, and it gloved me and hit me straight in the middle of the cage at the front. and if I hadn't had it, it would have knocked all my teeth out and broken my nose. And the first reaction was, "What's that?" Because the ball had hit my helmet for the first time ever. I'd never been hit on it before, and I thought, "Oh, I like that. That's rather good." I didn't feel a thing, and yet if I hadn't had the mask on, it would have knocked me out all over the place. Yeah.
What were the challenges facing the different bowlers, Marshall, Garner, and Holding?
Well, obviously, a lot depended on the wicket you played on. I can remember batting at Old Trafford when Michael ran in and bowled me a very fast ball, and it pitched just the short of a length, and I knocked it back down the wicket. Next ball pitched exactly in the same place, and it just flew, and I just flicked my head up, and it brushed the end of my nose like a feather, and I just rolled my head, and Derek Murray had to time the jump, and it nicked his glove, bounced once, and went smack into the side screen. And I look up, and John Edridge is at the other end, and he's got his hand over his face because he's laughing. But when you get a wicket where you can't rely on the length of the ball to assess the bounce, you really are struggling.
What about Big Bird Joel Garner?
Yeah, well, he was lovely man, great bloke. We knew him because he played a lot in England before, but when a bloke is 6'8" and it's not a bad start. Or 6'9.5", wasn't he? I think he was 6'9.5".
And Malcolm Marshall running in at you.
Yeah, well, Marshy was quick, and he swung the ball both ways, which made it very, very hard. Very hard, yeah.
Well, in the fifth test, where the banner was unfurled, the Blackwash,
yes.
Pat Pocock, another pair, I'm sad to report, but I did watch the final portion of the highlights of the day 5 of the fifth test with Richie on there. And Ray Illingworth made a comment when you were out. You were caught and bowled Holding, and Ray mentioned that Ray thought that Pocock had played too early.
I think I had, because it went in the air back to him, and he leapt up and caught it one-handed above his head, and it was. But I promise you, you see, the thing is, when I went in at the end of the innings or the night watchman, and you're playing against them, runs is the last thing that you are thinking about. I just wanted to get in and to stay in. I didn't want to get out and then for another batter to have to come in.
How good were the West Indian side of 1984? Are they the best Test side ever?
That's a very difficult question, because were they better than? They were better than the '68 side, but I don't think they were better than the. I mean, whether they're better than the '74 or the '76 side or not, I don't know. But they were absolutely a marvelous team, and it did so much good for the West Indies as a cricket nation, as well as a nation. It brought all the islands together, because they haven't always been in great unison, and because they started to win everything. Then I mean, Lloydie came from Guyana, and they came into it well, and but there were so many fine players, so it's rather difficult to say which team is better than the other. If you can say it, then probably the 68 team were the weakest team. But when the 68 team are the weakest team, then we've got problems.
Yes, because during a period between 1980 and 1995, they played 29 series without defeat. The only country getting anywhere near that is Australia. Between 01 and 05, they went 16 series without defeat.
Yeah, I mean, they were a good side as well, but no team is going to be feared as much as the West Indies team, because of all the fast bowlers they actually had.
From a bowling point of view, who was the hardest batsman to bowl to of the West Indians?
Hardest batsman to bowl to would have been Viv Richards, but but it's so difficult to say. I mean, in my career, I think I bowled about 400 overs at Gary Sobers, and I never got him out in a Test match. I think, though, I don't know for sure, I think I got him out about 8 times in other matches. I think I got him out in the Barbados game, the year when I played. I think Viv Richards was the hardest.
Final reflections then on the 1984 series.
Well, if you talk about the West Indies in the 70s and 80s, as well as the 60s, then you are literally up against it the whole time, and you know you're going to be up against it the whole time. But Hall and Griffith weren't bad with Sobers as well, and then the Holding, Croft, Garner, Marshall, Patterson, Ambrose, Walsh. I mean, fabulous people to play against, and best not to get in the night watchman if you can, and if you do, much better when you've got a helmet on your head.
Well, at least you missed the next Blackwash series in the West Indies when we lost 5-0 in 85-86.
Yes, I did, but I probably regretted missing it anyway, because even when I didn't do very well, I still enjoyed playing in the Test match, and it's still a great privilege and an honour to play in the Test match and to be picked to play. There are certain reasons you play against the West Indies. Now, there's 2 reasons. One is, are you the best bowler there is, or 2, does nobody else want to play? And that sort of thing. I mean, so it's a very difficult. The choice is very hard. Yeah.
Final question, Pat. Have all those bruises gone from being night watchman?
Well, I think I did it over 22 years. I did night watchman over 22 years, so I did it under an awful lot. But the most pain I had was the split fingers when the spinning finger, because I can remember when Sean Newdle, do you remember Sean Newdle?
Yep.
The day he retired, he played for Middlesex, and he was 40 years of age. And I said to Sean, is there anybody in the country who knows all the spinners better than you? And he said, no. He said, I probably know them as well as anybody, because he was 40 years old. So I said, how many rip their fingers spinning the ball? He said, none. I said, why is that? He said, because I don't spin it. And I mean, it was as easy as that. I mean, when Jim Laker, Lockie, big spinners of the ball, rip their fingers the whole time. But there's some bowlers that I knew, they bowled a long spell, they didn't have a mark on their finger. So I can only agree with Sean Newdle that they didn't have a mark because they didn't spin it.
Well, thank you very much, Pat, for sharing your what was it like to moment playing against the 1984 West Indians and many other West Indian sides.
Yeah, it's I mean, it was a great honour, and when I see them now, they come up and greet me like a long lost friend. They really do. But the same time, I just took the honour of playing against them or being picked to play against them because, I got over 1,600 first class wickets, but they weren't all against the West Indies, I promise you.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.